welcome to the Fitness and Lifestyle Podcast. I'm your host, Danny Kennedy, and I'm here to help you become the very best version of yourself. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Fitness and Lifestyle Podcast. Our guest today, this guy does it all. Andy Anderson. He's a WBFF pro. He's a CEO and founder of Ultimate You. He's an author of The Ultimate You. You can grab your copy of that book in the show notes below. He's also the host of the Relentless Entrepreneurs podcast, which you guys should check out as well. Again, the links to all of Andy's socials and website and the podcast and whatnot will be in the show notes below. But our conversation was extremely enjoyable and full of value. Anyone who knows Andy, he is full of positivity. He has so much value to offer, and he definitely did that in our conversation today. So a big thank you to him for joining us. I'd love for you guys to get around all of his content and whatnot in the show notes, as I've mentioned. But a big thank you for tuning in. I really do appreciate everyone who listens to the podcast, and I hope you take plenty away from today's show. And if you do, we'd love for you to take a screenshot of the episode, post it up on Instagram story for us, tag myself, tag Andy as well. We'd love to hear your feedback. Hope you're having a fantastic day and that you enjoy this conversation with Andy. Andy, welcome to the podcast, mate. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on. It's good to see your face.
Thank you, my man. Appreciate it.
How's things, man? How's things up in sunny Queensland? I'm sure it's much better than what it is down here in Victoria.
Yeah, well, look, bro, as you know, Queensland is a beautiful part of the world, and Gold Coast it's epic. It's beautiful up here. We've had lockdowns as well, but nothing compared to Victoria. So yeah, I'm feeling for everybody in Victoria big time right now. But GC's all right.
100%, man. Look, now you've been successful in many different areas, whether it be publishing books. Obviously, you got your pro card in the WBFF. Business, all over the shop, mate. You got your own podcast, you're everywhere. How do you start your day? It's a question that I love to ask the guests that I have on the show. And, for some people, it's super important. For others, it's not. For me, it's something that I find, it's just non-negotiable. The way I start my day is sets me up for either a successful day or an unproductive and shitty one. So what does the start of your day look like, man?
Yeah, dude, I completely agree. I think it's the most important part of the day. And I've had a ritual for a very long time. And basically, I get up straight away, and of course, I take a moment to just do a bit of breathing, center myself, and I basically go straight into goal setting and vision. And so, I think it's really important for me specifically because there's just so many distractions, so many things pulling me in different areas. I have to make sure that I remember who the fuck I am and what I'm here to do, because it's very easy, especially now with everything going on in the world, to be distracted and torn and thrown and forget, who you are and what you stand for. So I go into my goal setting. I go into my vision, tap into vision board as well, just to get a bit more inspiration happening too. And then I also review a bit of a code, so like a personal code of who I need to be daily, just to remind myself of those traits. And then, of course, I'll get into my workout. So I always do a workout first thing in the morning as well.
Fantastic. I think particularly in times like this, we won't spend too much time in our chat today, dwelling and talking about the lockdowns and whatnot, because I think safe to say that everyone's sick of hearing about it. But I think times like this is super important for, people to lead, lead from the front. And I guess, as they say, like tough times and through adversity, like real leaders kind of stand up. So as well as making sure, I think the first thing that's super important is obviously making sure that you're doing okay and that you're very clear about what your intentions are for the day and the week and whatever it may be. But after that, it can be super important to lead others as well. So is there anything you're doing particularly for staff or even those that follow you, your audience and people like that you're doing to lead from the front?
Absolutely, man. Well, number one, it's just appreciating everyone's point of view firstly. Everyone's going through something different right now in so many different levels and different ways, more than I've ever seen before. And I've spent my whole life helping people with mindset and with fitness and, as you do, mate. So it's just, you often deal with people and where they're at in emotionally and physically. But right now, I'm seeing so many different extremes. And so, first and foremost, I just go in with empathy and a bit of respect in regards to their point of view and their view of the world. And I always look for the sameness right now as well, because I've got strong views on what's happening. I'm copying shit left, right, and center, and but I also, although that can make me angry, I also look at everyone and think, everyone wants the same thing right now. They want to be safe. They want others to be safe. They want things to get back to normal. So if we can connect on the sameness and on the same level, it's such a good way to, I guess, to just get over yourself and get over the emotional side of what's happening and move forward in a positive direction. So, that's my initial approach. But first thing is I check in with my team every day. We have our team meetings still every single day, making sure that, they're busy, that they're doing their rituals as well, that their mindset's on point. Of course, I've got a lot of people messaging me every single day on social media, etc. And I do my best to respond and give my views and thoughts and hopefully some positive energy as well. And so I think it's just important to look at who's in your circle and also my close friends and family, checking in with them and making sure they're okay. It's really just communication, man. Communication and doing the best with what you can. Yeah.
100%. And I know you touched on it. I've seen it on your socials in the last few days in particular. Like, it can be super tough when you do have something to say or you want to kind of speak your voice, and there's a lot of people that necessarily don't necessarily agree or may not like to hear or see what they're hearing and seeing. But in saying that, it is super important, I think, in times like this, that if you are a leader, that you have to disregard that and speak your mind and speak what you actually believe in, which you're doing an incredible job of. The path that you're on now, obviously, all over your mindfulness, all over the business side of things, your health, mental and physical. Is this the Andy that's always been there? Or is it you always on this path, or is there a certain event or a certain part of your life that really pushed you down the right path to kind of lead you to where you are today?
Well, I mean, I've always been driven to a certain degree in different areas. If I'm passionate about something, I'm all in and get obsessive about it and go for it. Yeah. But I think that the path of self-improvement and health and fitness, it was a combination of knowing what I really didn't want, and then, of course, starting to cultivate a vision of what I did want. And, I grew up in Ballarat, small town, went through my phase of fighting, drinking, drugs, all those sorts of things. My dad suffered from depression. My brother committed suicide. I saw a lot of what I definitely did not want to end up like and be like and live my life like. And I also just had this internal yearning for more, that I wanted to do more, be more. I wasn't satisfied with just being a chippy and getting on the piss and eating shitty food and whatever. I just knew I had something more to give. And that's sort of what called me to this line of work. Initially, it was a bit selfish because I love training and I wanted to just look ripped and get healthy. And then when I did that, I was like, holy shit, this is so powerful. I feel amazing. I want to share this with people. I want to share it with my family and friends. And once I started sharing it with people and saw that they were getting results, I knew that this was something that I'd always do in some capacity, So that's what really sort of set me on this journey.
100%. And, obviously with platforms like the podcast and even the book and whatnot, that's a fantastic way to be able to deliver that message and share your own journey and share your message with many people. What has the response been like, particularly with the book, in regards to what you've been able to share with everyone?
Man, the response has been great. I mean, it inspires a lot of people. It's been powerful in a lot of different ways. And it's one of the greatest gifts when you're getting a random message from someone you've never met before. It could be in a different state or a different country, and they're like, "Your book changed my life," or "Your book's really impacted me," or, I mean, it's such a big buzz. So, for me, from a selfish level, I love that. I love helping people in that way, and a bit of a trip when people sort of recognize that and it helps them.
Yeah.
But I think that, people need inspiration and people need to know that it doesn't matter where you have been and where you start from. Your past does not dictate your future. And I think stories like ours and mine and others, it's so good to share. So I think, not only for myself, but anyone who has a story should share it, because that story will inspire someone. And I mean, this is why you do your podcast, I'm assuming.
100%, yeah.
And why I do mine as well. Some of the people I've interviewed, it's crazy. It really, really helps people. Like, people that have been in prison and people that have had this happen and that happen, and everyone can relate to someone, and someone needs that inspiration somewhere.
100%. And, you touched on a really good point there. And for those that are listening and, what Andy just touched on in terms of everyone has a story, I think sometimes people almost undermine their story, like think that their story is not special, or they see something online and go, well, mine doesn't compare to that. But everyone's story really is important. It can impact everyone. And I'm sure you're the same. Like every time I put out a bit of content, whether it is the podcast, whether it's social media, an email, or whatever, it's if I can impact just one person, like one person, I've done my job. And, I often talk to people, particularly like new trainers and stuff like that ask me around things like, how can they grow their podcast or their social media and whatnot. It's like, you got someone who has 500 followers on Instagram. Imagine standing in a room with 500 people and telling them, delivering the message you want to deliver. And when you put it in that perspective, like you can impact so many people. What for you, what is the goal, like with the podcast, with the book, with your business, and continuing to better yourself, day in, day out? Like, what is the ultimate goal for you?
Look, it's a big question, because I think there's sort of multiple goals and angles. Number one, it's a passion. Like I love, I'm sure you love it as well. I'm so curious about people, and I get really interested to just understand their psychology and their behavior and their belief patterns and values and why they do what they do. So with the podcast, and even, with all of my businesses, they're all people businesses, so I've got a passion for understanding people, helping people, moving people forward. So, I mean, look, at the end of the day, it is about helping people. It's about helping myself evolve and grow. I'm not satisfied with who I am, and I'm always just trying to get better in so many different ways. And I feel like I'm the best version of myself I've ever been right now, but I also know that's on the tip of the iceberg. So it's always about challenging myself, stretching myself and my skills. Really, I guess, breaking barriers within myself and just in general, and just pushing forward, and hopefully I can bring a lot of people on that journey with me.
That's awesome, man. I think regardless of how big or small the goal is or the aspiration is, like to achieve any form of success in whatever you do, there needs to be a specific goal, and it needs to be measurable. It needs to be reverse engineered, and there needs to be a clear pathway of how it's going to happen. When you're sitting down and, writing down your journal, whatever it may be, you've got some big goal that you want to work towards. Like, what is your process in terms of setting that goal? Like, whether it is reverse engineering, whether it's having the smaller goals along the way, like how does that look for you when you're mapping that out?
Yeah, great question, man. And so you're right. I do reverse engineer it, because I always start with massive, big picture inspiration that gets me excited. It's got to start with something big, something dramatic, something
scary.
Butterflies. Yeah, something scary, something really that stirs me inside. I mean, I run off a lot of intuition, and so like I feel a lot in my guts. And when I feel that passion start churning in my guts, I know I'm on. I know that I know that's a goal that I'll sacrifice for, I'll fight for, I'll fail and get back up for. That's the sort of goal that I need to chase. If it's something that doesn't stir me, I just know that it's not worth chasing. So, I mean, as you know, dude, any big goal or big vision, it's going to fucking hurt. It's going to burn. You're going to lose. You're going to win. You're going to bleed, cry, sweat, all of those things. It's not going to be a pleasant journey the whole time. And so you got to be prepped for that. And if you're not, intrinsically motivated by this thing, well, you need to pick another goal, in my view.
Yeah.
So that's how I sort of start. And then I work backwards and I milestone it. and timeline it. And I set those smaller chunk goals towards the bigger goal. And I review that every single day. So I've got the big picture view, and then of course the immediate touch points that I need to work on. And then even at a micro level, if I'm actually, crunching down, you ask any of my team, I'm a Nazi in regards to time management. And so having a default diary, chunking out every half an hour of your day, breaking it down to the micro. It's great to have the macro, but when you're really digging in the trenches, I go to the micro as well.
Yeah, I think it was might have been Brendan Bouchard. I don't know if you've seen much of his content, but he talks about, like, he can tell straight away whether someone's serious about their goal purely by looking at their diary, or like looking at their planner to see like what their day looks like and how specific they really are in terms of managing their time and their tasks and whatnot. I want to quickly touch on adversity. I think obviously, everyone that's tuned in has gone through some form of adversity over the past 12 to 18 months or at any point in their life. And I think regardless of how positive the individual is or how driven the person is, you'd be lying if you said that, big failures and big disappointments don't get to you in some way or another. So when you do have those big setbacks, like, what's your process of dealing with that and moving forward and making sure that you stick the path and, working towards those big scary goals like we touched on?
Yeah, great question, man. Look, I think that there's different extremes, and what's happened is a big extreme for a lot of people. And look, man, I just want to say, I feel for so many people right now. So many people losing their businesses and, losing family members, or they're just going through so much turmoil. So it is a crazy time. And I think, number one, you need perspective. Like, you've got to try to reframe what's happening on so many different levels, depending on how complex the problem actually is, or the failure actually is. Setback. And you need to get perspective. I also think you need the ability to detach, because if you are too emotionally involved in whatever's happening, then it will destroy you. Full stop. You have to have the ability to detach from what's happening in order to gain that perspective, but also to give yourself some peace. Because if you don't do that, you will be the victim to whatever's going on always. And that's a really terrible place to live. And unfortunately, a lot of people, they fall into that victim mentality. They're stuck at the mercy of the situation. And they don't have maybe the mental capacity or the training in order to detach. So I would really learn and educate myself on that as quick as I could in order to do so.
Yeah, people often attach themselves to that story and all of a sudden wrap their whole identity around that story of the victim mentality or the result, instead of focusing on the right now and what can be done and moving past it and moving forward.
100%, man. And I also, you're right, the internal dialogue starts to go off if you haven't trained yourself in order to control that. It's going to control you. And what that looks like is we have a negative bias as humans, and that negativity is just going to be pumping. You're an idiot, you're not smart, you're dumb, you're a failure, you're fat, you're ugly, whatever. All these things. So whatever your situation is, it's amplified. And so one quick hack or tip that really serves me when I have something, a massive clusterfuck of some sort, and I need to figure out a way to get through, you got to remember that a huge part of you getting through it is identifying as a person that can get through it, right? So if you identify as fragile or you're not good enough or whatever it is, you will be that thing. You will not move forward. You will just succumb and then dwell in the uncomfortable and the negative. So I find examples or role models of people that have either been through the exact thing that I'm dealing with and exceeded and overachieved and pushed on, or something worse. And so I gain a lot of strength from that. I'm passionate about reading biographies and studying, successful people and great people. And you can just learn a lot from winners, So everyone's going through something effed up right now. And if I'm talking entrepreneurs, because you and me are, and I and I want to help those people the most. You know, if you're an entrepreneur going through some pain and trouble right now, there's a lot of people that have lost it all and built it back and had some big struggles in life. And remember, no matter what happens, you could lose everything today and you can come back within 12 months bigger and better. Honestly, you can. So, you know, that helps me a lot when I try to decode, I guess, myself and the strategy to move forward.
I love that. Obviously, you and I are both pretty heavily into our training, and you know, anyone that that is educated around training knows that, you know, going through a training block, a periodized block, you get to a point where it's time for a deload. You get to a point where you reach diminishing returns. If you just keep pushing, regardless of how motivated and driven you are, you're going to get to a point where the results start to drop off unless you give your body and your mind a chance to recover. When it comes to the business side of things, I think to an extent that's true as well. When you reach that point where you feel like you're almost at that burnout stage, or you just need to take a step back and give yourself some time, like, firstly, is that something that you do, or do you try and push through it? And if you do take that time, like, what is your kind of go-to way of stepping away from everything and giving yourself a bit of fresh air before diving back in?
Yeah, man, great question. And I think, I mean, we evolve and we change a lot as we grow up and get old. I don't know if I'm that old just yet, but I mean, when I started my business, I was like, no, I don't even need that. I'm just going to be an absolute fucking savage. Yeah. Savage and go through. I won't even sleep, whatever. But I think I've learned to appreciate sleep, number one, in a huge way. But I've also learned to appreciate just respecting those moments where I do need to deload and just get my shit together for a moment. And how I do that currently is I've got a massive respect for breath work in a huge way. I've always found it a little bit hard to meditate the traditional way just because my brain's so crazy all the time. But I find that breath work is really like a great active meditation. What style
of breath work do you do? Like, is it something along the lines of like a Wim Hof type breath work method? Is there, like, are you able to go into detail about what that kind of looks like?
I have done a little bit of Wim Hof, but I have done also more like therapeutic breath work where, you know, laying down, visualization, different repetitions of breath in order to produce natural DMT, etc. So
awesome.
I've done a little bit of that. I'm working with a legend up here on the Gold Coast at the moment, Alex Butchis. He does a bunch of movement breath work as well, and I guess really learning to own the breath under pressure. Yep. So I'm just learning to respect breathing on so many different levels. And once you actually study a lot more about the breath, you know, it can really help just so many different things in life.
Yeah.
Right? Stress is just such a huge issue for so many of us. So, you know, that was a huge answer. But basically, breath work is a great way to do it. And I do breathing in the morning. As soon as I feel a bit of anxiety, I get straight into breathing. I check myself. And so that's a really huge thing for me as well. Also, man, I just love to, I love to go down the beach, and I love to just find a place that is calming and close my eyes and just do a form of meditation on my vision. I just like to think about where my future is going and who I'm going to be. And that helps me. I feel like it's, you know, still aiding in my growth and progression moving forward, but it is also a time to calm myself down and future pace.
Shit, yeah, man. I don't know if you've already connected with him or not, but I'll have to connect you with a mate of mine, Dino Gladstone. He does a lot of breath work. He used to be on. He was one of the big dogs on Bondi Rescue.
Oh,
and
great!
Now I was fortunate enough to cross paths with him a few years ago, and we've stayed in touch. But he's huge into the breath work and done some created some courses along those lines, and just swears by it. He's been through some. Like tough times as well, and he's just said how important that's been for him. So I'll have to connect you guys after we wrap up. In terms of the business side of things, I know you touched on before, leading your staff and managing your staff and making sure that they're okay and they're in the right headspace as well. We touched on adversity before we hit record. We're talking about how even in terms of the gym locations that you've got, a number of those are going to have to close down. Like how in terms of restructuring all that, how do you see that looking moving forward? And, another question I was interested in asking you as well is like in terms of their physical gym location, is that something that you'll continue to explore moving forward, or because of all this, are you now reconsidering whether or not you would be willing to invest in opening more of those locations?
Yeah, and it's a massive question, man, and it's been on my mind for 2 years. Like it's one of those complicated things that we really do not know what the hell's happening. This is the problem, right?
Yeah.
So if we had an understanding, then we could, create a solution. So really what we're doing is predicting the future, and, we're listening to there's so much BS going around in the media and whatever, but we have to try to take what we can from that. We hear the new normal constantly being thrown out. I do think things are going to be different, and I'm optimistic that things aren't going to be terrible. That's for sure. And I think there will always be a place for centres and studios, etc.
Yeah.
I really think that the big box centres are on their way out at a larger level. Because I just think boutique they have too much market share, which obviously takes away from the capacity for large gyms to thrive and survive. And for our model, we're looking at ways to reduce expenses, to be able to weather a storm of this magnitude again. When you go into a lockdown for 2 years and you have to look at rents and finance and a whole bunch of other expenses that, don't necessarily budge that much, it's a huge thing. So, larger rents are then going to be an issue ongoing if that's going to be the case. So these are all the things we've been thinking about, planning and working on. We do have some exciting plans for after this, which we're pumped about. I can't just tell you too much yet, but we're working on some cool things. But we're also heavily pivoting with the online side. So we're working on some different equipment to implement at home, up-leveled, apps, and also, looking to the future. Where else will fitness go? There's got to be another level past apps. There's got to be another level for home workout and connection. And so I've been delving into that space a lot, coming up with some different plans.
Fantastic, man. Yeah, it's almost been. It's fair to say it's almost been forced, hasn't it? It's like almost forced progression of where the whole fitness industry is going, and I think, someone like myself and you included, probably very fortunate to have had the online business or present side of things prior to this. I mean, you can only imagine like how difficult it would be for some people that just had none of that prior to all of this. Is there anyone, just moving away from all that stuff now, is there anyone or anything that you kind of turn to for inspiration or motivation on a daily basis? Like, obviously you're leading the way yourself, and a lot of people look up to you, but I think it's fair to say like everyone takes bits and pieces from someone or something to further better themselves. So what does that look like for you? Is there certain books or people that you kind of take away value from their content?
Absolutely. Look, I've got some great mentors. I get inspiration from so many different places at different times as well. Like I like to get specific with my inspiration. So, if I'm in a real sales mindset, I'm going to look to the absolute sales guns for inspiration. You look at Grant Cardone and players like that.
I'm glad you said that. I was going to bring him up. You've done it for
me. I love him. I love Grant Cardone. He's an animal. And so, when you're looking at like emotional capacity and handling stress, you might look at Goggins or some other mentors like Sharon Pearson, who's a Melbourne Melbourne guru down there. She's an absolute beast, like a close friend of mine, but also a guru. So I love getting inspiration from her, and books as well, and then even just images. Like I've got pictures of people that inspire me. Like you got Jordan behind you there.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So in my office, I've got all of these images of people that have done incredible things. Elon Musk, Jordan's up there, Kobe Bryant's up there, Trump's up there. Not all. And I just want to point out that not every inspiration you have to like everything about.
Every aspect of them, yeah.
That's right. You take certain characteristics that you want, and then you just disregard the rest. So if you want like unshakable confidence and resilience, you look at someone like Trump. If you want like absolute obsession and grind, you look at Jordan and Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
If you want massive vision and the guts and determination to go for the impossible, you look at Elon Musk.
Yeah.
And so this is the way I look at my inspiration. I like to segment and chunk and take on the characteristics that serve me and disregard the rest.
In terms of leading your team and any form of culture of an audience or whatever, like I think knowing your values and the values that you want those around you to envision as well is super important. Like particularly with your staff, is there specific values that you try and instill within the company, within the business, to make sure that everyone's on the same page?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, with my companies, we always have a set of values that we hire by, fire by, live by. We've got a code of honor as well, which is phrases or sayings that we all resonate with that help guide us. So we use them almost like a compass in the business. And I mean, these are things like take responsibility. These are things like embrace the uncomfortable, pressure is privilege, things like that. And I think at a higher level, simple values like respect is just so crucial, respecting each other and each other's point of views. And that's a huge foundational value that everyone should just get on board with. Not a lot of people do these days, but I think a lot of people should. And I think if more of us evaluated what values and principles we want to live by, I think we would just run into less trouble, and we would also attract better quality people for our mission and our lives in general. So, I think it's a great question. I think it's something we should all delve into deeper, and I think you really need to get specific around it as well.
Yeah, 100%. Before we move a bit closer to wrapping up, I wanted to ask you, you're obviously super passionate about what you do and you help so many people. And I was actually talking to, obviously, my partner, Danielle, and we've also got a good mutual friend in Simon. And I was saying to Danielle the other day, it's guys like you and Simon who, and it's not just guys, but there's plenty of females as well. But like you come across people where you almost don't even need to say anything. You can kind of feel the positivity and the vibe from someone, and it just spreads, particularly in times like this. Like I've spoken to so many people about how you could go down to a local cafe throughout lockdown, and 99.9% of the people there are all just complaining about the same thing, and there's just negative vibes, and it takes one person to spread that positivity or just be positive, and it just lights everyone else up. In saying that, I've just completely fucking gone off topic there, but what's a question that you wish more people would ask you? And then at the same time, what's a question that you think or you would hope that more people would ask themselves?
I've never had that question before. That's a good one. Nice. A question that I wish more people asked me. I think a question that I would like to be asked more is, I think this came up last night in a webinar I did around mindset with some of my clients, and the question was, how are you always positive? Was the question.
Okay.
And why I thought that was a good question was because I needed to make a point that I'm not, and most people aren't. And I think that where a lot of people go wrong if they haven't done a lot of work on themselves is they look at people like you and me and Simon, etc., and they think, these guys are just superhuman. They're just always positive. And I said, no, we have feelings too. We have ups and downs as well. And, we might feel awesome and positive 60% of the time fully.
Yeah.
But the rest of the time, we still show up. Right? We still step up in the face of not feeling so good.
Yeah.
Whether you feel like it or not, you still do your best. You still push through. You still you still have a good conversation. You still try anyway. So, the point of that was that I want everyone to recognize that we aren't always positive, and we're human as well. And we are all emotional creatures that have our chinks in the armor and our weaknesses and strengths. Mm-hmm. And some of us feel awesome 80% of the time, some of us 90, some of us 60, whatever. And it doesn't fucking matter, to be honest. Yeah. What actually matters is your ability to understand that we all have a percentage of good and bad, and we all have the opportunity to show up as a better version of ourselves in each of those moments. And with more repetition and more conditioning in that, the better you will become, and until all of a sudden you rise to the occasion more often than you don't. And then I think that's where you evolve and grow. So big answer, but I think that, I think that's a question that I'd like to go over with people more.
Mate, that's incredible. That's a brilliant answer. Well done. A+. Mate, I really appreciate your time today. I'm looking forward to hopefully catching up in person at some point in the very near future. But, man, keep doing what you're doing. You're spreading so much positivity and helping so many people. And like I said, I appreciate you coming on the show today. And I'm sure so many people have taken plenty of value away from our conversation, man. And we'll have to do it again very soon, 100%.
Absolutely, man. It was an honor. And, dude, you're killing it. You should be really proud of yourself, dude. You help a lot of people. And hopefully we have a coffee at Dundas soon enough. It'll be good.
100%, man. Much appreciated. And for everyone who's tuned in, we really appreciate that as well. If you've taken some value away from today's conversation, which I'm sure you have, we'd love for you to take a screenshot of this episode on your phone, put it up on your Instagram story for us, tag myself, tag Andy. We'll have the links to all his socials and website and the book and the podcast and everything in the show notes below. Make sure you get around him and give him a follow if you're not already. Again, man, thank you. And thank you to everyone who has tuned in today.
Legend.